Good morning. I'm Wilson Meyer, Director of Business Expansion for the Knoxville Chamber. Thank you for joining us this morning. We're grateful to have you here today as we learn more about trade exporting and the local support available to your business. Today's focus is on the opportunities to expand business sales to other countries. I'd like to take a moment to allow one of the Chamber's Economic Development Ecosystem sponsors to make an introduction. We appreciate their support and investment in the Chamber's mission and our community. Please allow me to introduce Jennifer Moore, Marketing Manager for Mesa Associates.
Sorry, good morning. Thank you for having us, Wilson. I wanted to tell you a little bit about Mesa. Mesa is a local Knoxville community business. We've been in the Knoxville area for 29 years, and we are a woman-owned, full-service, multidiscipline engineering, procurement, and construction management company, specializing in engineering services to the industrial, commercial, municipal, electrical utility industry. We specialize in power generation and delivery services, including electrical high voltage substation, switchyard, transmission, and distribution design. Delivering value to our clients has resulted in over 150 million of engineering services, and we service about 13 out of the top 15 utilities across the United States. Mesa offers one of the most experienced and capable teams available for conducting engineering studies, 3D laser scanning, UL 508A panel fabrication, drone inspections, analyzing systems, preparing designs, schedules, and cost estimates for a wide range of projects. Economic development is important to Mesa, as the prosperity of Knox County residents and Knox County businesses will depend largely on the ability for the ability of the region to grow in an economic environment where talent is most precious to our resources. There continues to be a high job demand and lower workforce growth, resulting in fierce competition for talent and many open jobs going unfulfilled. We know, firsthand, that's one of the biggest challenges we face right now. Historically, people have cited cost of living, particularly affordable housing, as a local advantage, but that advantage is quickly evaporating. However, because of skyrocketing housing costs, that reflective lack of inventory. So if employers cannot fill their jobs, they will move elsewhere. And if employers move, the small businesses that depend on them, from like accountants to restaurants, will close. Without payroll that generates sales tax and commercial interest, that yields property taxes, local governments will be forced to cut services and raise taxes to current residents. So that's one of the biggest challenges we face right now. So that is why what the Chamber is doing and what the local businesses are doing in the Knoxville community are so important to Mesa. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jennifer, and thanks to Mesa for all the great things you guys are doing in Knoxville. At this time, I'd like to welcome Jennifer Woods, Director with the U.S. Commercial Service, and Paul Bonovich, Tennessee District Export Council Chairman. Jennifer, Paul, thank you for joining us today. The audience is welcome to enter questions in the Q&A panel, and we will answer those as time allows at the end of the webinar. Now, Jennifer, would you please introduce yourself and your role at the U.S. Commercial Service? Turn on your mic, please, Jennifer. Sorry, but you're still muted. Why don't we go to Paul real quick? And Paul, why don't you introduce yourself? And your role, District Export Council.
Thank you, Wilson. Good morning, everyone. My name is Paul Bonovich. I am the president of Consolidated Inventory Supply in Alcoa. I also serve as the chairman of the Tennessee District Export Council. The District Export Council is a group of international business executives who support the mission of the U.S. Export Assistance Centers. We are appointed by the Secretary of Commerce, And our primary role is to serve as a business support mechanism for the efforts of commerce, more specifically, the Export Assistance Centers in their outreach efforts with businesses in our communities. With that having been said, I think it's really important to hear from Jennifer, and I think I'll stop right there and add more insight later after Jennifer presents herself.
Thank you, Paul, and sorry for the technical glitch earlier. My name is Jennifer Woods. I am the director of the Knoxville Commercial Service Office, or Export Assistance Center, as Paul has referenced. The Commercial Service is a small agency within the U.S. Department of Commerce. So we are a federal agency with a mission to help support particularly small and medium-sized companies to begin exporting and expand exports around the globe. I am located in our Knoxville office. As I mentioned, we're co-located here in the chamber. I'm available for meetings in person here at the chamber or at your offices at your convenience. I can be reached by phone and telephone as well. I believe my contact details will be shared with you. And I welcome anybody to set up a meeting so we can discuss in more detail the various programs and services we have to assist your small business to begin exporting around the globe. I have colleagues across the state of Tennessee. So we have an office in Nashville that serves Central Tennessee. We have an office in Memphis that serves West Tennessee. And we try to make it as easy as possible for you, the small business, to access us and our services. So as I mentioned earlier, I'm more than happy to come to your facility for appointments and meetings to save you time on the road. And my colleagues in other parts of the state are also available to meet with offices in those areas. We, in addition, have offices across the United States. So the Commercial Service has a presence in every state with at least one office per state. In offices in states such as Tennessee, California, Texas, where there is a more spread out geographic area, we have multiple offices, again, designed to be convenient to you, the customer, the client. So we are here to help and serve and assist you with your exports and beginning your export process. I am also assisted by my colleagues across the globe. So we have commercial offices that are co-located in embassies and consulates around the world in over 70 markets, in any of the major commercial centers. In addition, we work very closely with some of our State Department colleagues in markets where we don't have a direct presence, and they are able to provide and offer the same level of assistance that we do as the Commercial Service. So I welcome your questions, welcome your outreach. Please feel free to schedule a meeting with me. I'm here to help, and I'm really eager and anxious to get to know the international business community here in the Knoxville area. Thank you.
Thanks, Jennifer. Paul, did you have more to add?
Absolutely. Now, this is when my job really becomes easy after Jennifer speaks. So what I could do to amplify the message that Jennifer was trying to communicate is the fact that the U.S. Export Assistance Centers have offices around the country, and they are a very dynamic and helpful partner in any company looking to expand internationally. And let me tell you how they do it. They can provide you studies for any specific industry if they have that available. They can help do matchmaking. They have a matchmaking service that allows you to identify possible customers and distributors in specific markets where your product or service has the greatest potential. Now, I have used the Department of Commerce and worked with them for 35 years. I know I don't look like it, but I have found that they have colleagues across the globe, and I have to really emphasize in 70 markets. So whether you're interested in Canada or Mexico or Japan or Nigeria, all of those markets are very well served by capable professional business partners, which is the key. And now, when we talk about government, sometimes we kind of assume that they're government officials. I look at the U.S. Export Assistance as being business partners. who have very qualified personnel working with private business to help private business grow their international business portfolio. Jennifer, for example, worked extensively in the telecommunications industry and comes to commerce with a great deal of business savvy. So we're very fortunate to have her at Knoxville. And if she invites you to meet with her, I would strongly encourage you to do that.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Jennifer. So first question, and I'm sure it's the big one for most business owners. What are the benefits of selling overseas? Jennifer?
I'll let Paul speak to that as a firsthand user of our services and a businessman who has done business internationally for, I believe, the majority of the existence of his business. In general, the benefits are in diversifying your revenue streams and your risk across markets. So when you see a downturn or a recession in one market, hopefully if you've diversified your portfolio across multiple countries, there will be other markets where there's an uptick that you can, compensate for the drop in demand in another market. So there is that benefit. In addition, we used to say that the majority of the world's consumers are located outside the United States. And so if you're only selling in the United States, that's a great start, but you're leaving a lot of money on the table potentially. So it really is worthwhile to look around the world and see where there may be some markets where there is substantial demand for your product or service. And we're here to help you understand that process.
Paul?
Yeah, well, I think that's a great question. I personally believe that exporting is the best form of economic diplomacy any American can have. Now, I know those are strong terms, but I believe it. When you realize that the U.S. differentiates itself with a lot of markets, including China and Europe, by having quality products, leading in technology, and providing outstanding service. Now, that to me really speaks to who we are as a people and who we are as business owners and businesses. So we excel at providing the best type of service or product that's available in the market. And we typically earn the trust of our customers here in the US and internationally. So to a certain extent, I really believe that our role in terms of promoting economic growth in our communities and in our businesses is driven by our ability to engage companies overseas. Now, I think Jennifer's absolutely correct. The diversification that you find by exporting provides a great deal of relief as markets turn. Right now, my company exports to 70 countries worldwide. We even diversify in the markets that we sell in. So in some markets, we focus on either agricultural products, some markets it's construction products, some markets it's mining products. So the ability to diversify our portfolio and our sales allows us to mitigate risks as markets shrink or contract.
Thank you, Paul. Appreciate that. And as you said, it certainly helps to drive different revenue streams for your organization. So next question, what are the initial steps that a company needs to take in order to begin exporting? And second part of that, is there a need or benefit of working with a brokerage group to help with documentation requirements or other costs that may not normally be associated with selling domestically? Jennifer?
Thank you for that question, Wilson. Initially, if you're looking to export, I would say the very first step you need to take is to do some extensive market research. And again, this is an area where we can assist. So our colleagues on the ground around the world are constantly developing market research about specific industries that they see as opportunities in those markets. We have something called country commercial guides that we publish on an annual basis that is an update on the economic situation in a given country, as well as the top 10 industry sectors that we see for opportunity in the coming year. We also have access to a number of market research databases, so we can assist and guide you in that process. But first and foremost, the market research, understanding what are your top markets of opportunity, and then prioritizing those and coming up with a budget, a realistic budget to develop your international markets. So a common, I would say, mistake that I see when people begin exporting is they think it is a natural offshoot, perhaps, of domestic sales in the United States. International business is distinctly different. It has a somewhat more extended timeline in general in terms of market development, business development, and sales cycle. So you need to be prepared for that. Your senior executives within the company need to be prepared for that and have realistic goals and expectations. And understanding that there's a lot that is going to change in terms of the way you sell internationally versus the way you sell domestically. It's important to have that domestic sales model in mind as you develop your international business, but understanding that not all markets will allow for a similar model. In addition, you will have additional costs, as Wilson noted, the cost of getting your product to market, all of those logistics, duties and taxes and tariffs that may accrue on the far side of the market. And so understanding what your landed cost or your sales price is in a given market versus what you sell for domestically in the US is also important so that you're not losing money on a deal. These are all things that we can assist you with as you begin your planning process. To Wilson's point, brokerage firms, logistics providers can be key partners as you begin your export process. Over time, you may find that it is advantageous to bring that expertise in-house and be able to do it within your own company. At the outset, however, it is often something that you do need to consider having a trusted partner external to the company who can advise and assist you with that process. So we ourselves are not logistics providers. We are simply business consultants and trade advisors. So we can advise you on the processes, the information that you need, the resources to get that information. And we can also make recommendations within the local community for those providers, logistics, international attorneys, etc. And Paul's role in the deck, our deck members, are all experienced international businessmen who are also here to serve in an advisory capacity as people who have conducted international business and are very aware of the local community resources. Over.
Well, Jennifer, you always have the right words. I don't know what else I could say, but Jennifer nailed it on the head. I think, I typically tell companies that there's only, if you're going to eat an elephant, which I would compare to international sales, you got to be careful. You got to choose the bite you want to have first, because you're going to be doing a lot of chewing. So, international sales and building your export business requires, number one, a commitment from management to separate domestic sales from international sales. They are two different skill sets, and they require, if you're going to try to have your domestic salespeople do international sales, you may end up making some mistakes. It's just a word of caution. The other thing I would say is that, finding out about the market is also about exposing yourself to opportunities at trade shows or through your whatever association you might be affiliated with. Those give you opportunities to kind of see who's participating and where they're coming from. I also think it's a good idea to travel overseas. If you have someone that you meet in your trade association or at a trade show and they're from Mexico and they invite you to visit, or Canada, you should go see them. I've made it a point over the past 27 years to visit most of our customers, and that just means a lot of traveling. The last thing I would say is there are some technical things that you need to know about, and those are that's a skill set that you can acquire. There are things like Incoterms, payment terms. There are logistic considerations. All of that can be learned, and there are resources out there that can help you. Jennifer can point them out. Members of the deck can. They're available, and they're extremely helpful in helping you make decisions about what markets to.
Thanks, Paul, and thanks, Jennifer. So, follow-up question: are there types of products that could or should be exported, and what types of products are difficult to export? And then what options are there for companies that offer a service versus a physical product? Jennifer, we'll go to you first.
So in terms of what there's no can or should be exported. I mean, there are definitely restrictions and limitations on specific products of concern to the U.S. government. So that is items that have a potential dual use. So it's an otherwise innocuous product that you have not designed for anything illicit or dangerous, but in the wrong hands could be potentially reused for those things, such as nuclear weapons development, crime, terrorist activities, etc. Other than that, everything's open. You don't need, as a U.S. exporter in general, you don't need permission from the government or a license or anything to export. Now, other than the items I just mentioned that are potentially dual use or actual military items which are controlled, where you might need to seek a license from the State Department or the Commerce Department. In general, most of the things we're talking about can be exported. It's simply up to you, the company, to make the decision that this is something you want to do. And whether it's a service or a tangible product, again, the U.S. Commercial Service is here to help. I have spent the bulk of my 25-year career in commerce assisting service-based companies. In fact, one of my favorite sectors to work with, and no offense to Paul, and is remanufactured equipment, which is a tremendous opportunity. I have worked extensively with the U.S. higher education sector to promote higher education, U.S. higher education abroad. So whenever a foreign student or a foreign visitor comes to the United States, so for travel and tourism, to study at a university, they are spending foreign currency in the U.S., so that is considered a net export on our balance of trade. Services exports are a significant part of the U.S. economy, and our agency recognizes this, and we are definitely here to assist. We have organized ourselves, in addition to our offices around the world and around the U.S., we have global teams of specialists who work in specific sectors, who understand the sector in detail, as well as the markets of opportunity around the world, collaborate on best practices, on delivering on trade shows and trade missions and webinars. And we have an education team. We have a travel and tourism team. We have engineering, construction, design services. So regardless of the sector you're in, regardless of your product or service, we are interested in working with you and seeing if we can help leverage you into the international arena. I hope I answered that question, Wilson.
Comprehensively again, Jennifer, thank you very much. I don't know if I have much to add other than the fact that there is one, if you're curious about what products can or can't be exported, I would recommend that you take a quick look for go online and look up the Bureau of Industry and Standards. They have a guide which they consider to be the Export Classification Code. I think classification code number. Maybe Jennifer can help me on that. The ECCN, and it clearly stipulates items that you can export and can export. As Jennifer mentioned, it's the dual-use military items that really kind of may require some permitting. But by and large, most of the products that are available in the U.S. are considered NLR or no license required, and they can be readily exported.
Thank you so much. So I would like to remind our audience, if you have questions, please submit those in the chat feature. So Follow-up question. According to the SBA, small businesses that export are 8.5% less likely to go out of business than non-exporting companies. Is there such a thing as being too small for exporting? Paul.
Hey, perfect. Well, let me just tell you that I started my business in the corner of my mom's house 27 years ago, and I started by exporting. I moved then to an apartment and then into a home, and I was using my living room as a warehouse. That didn't go well with my wife, so I finally got my own office and my own warehouse. So you can be any size in order to export. We're currently in Alcoa and in 55,000 square feet, and we are still exporting. So I would say that if you have a product and you are and it has a measurable and measurable market benefit, you should consider exporting.
Jennifer?
Just quickly, Wilson, I have put into the chat box a link to our trade.gov website, to one specific portion of that where there are a number of tutorials and resources on how to export as people begin to think about exporting. It walks you through the various steps that you need to consider and think about. In addition, on that trade.gov website, in other areas, you will find our online market research library and a lot of information on the export controls process that Paul just referenced. So even if you do have a controlled item or technology, I would say it is definitely still exportable. And I work with a lot of clients and have advised clients over the years on doing their due diligence in terms of export controls and compliance. It's something that, frankly, every exporter is supposed to be aware of and following. But I digress. I think in general, it doesn't hurt to look, right? So I was recently just did a tour in Nigeria in our office there in Lagos for 5 years. And we used to go to the market and the vendor's favorite line was, "It's free to look. Please come," because they just wanted to get you in their stall long enough to start making the sales pitch. So I guess that's my pitch, is that it's free to look. You can make an appointment with me. You can talk to me on the phone. You can email me, come in the office, ask me to come visit you at your place of business. And we can talk for hours. You can ask me as many questions as you want, free of charge. And if at the end of that conversation or those conversations, you determine that this is not the right fit for your company, I will respect that. Of course, I'm going to try to convince you otherwise, and I'm going to continue to throw resources and information at you. Because I do think there are tremendous benefits, as Paul has articulated, as I've tried to articulate as well, to exporting and how it can really grow and diversify your small business. So basically what you're doing is you are growing your business and growing the U.S. economy with foreign inputs. So we're getting currency outside of our country that is a net input into the economy and supporting our economic growth and job creation.
That's great. Thanks so much. So, we've all been dealing with a lot of supply chain issues here for the past couple of years, and we think more about importing as opposed to exporting. Are we having similar type of supply chain issues going outbound like we are inbound? And then what are some of the nuances? Because obviously domestically we don't ship via ocean, but if you're going overseas, that may be the more economical way to do it. So obviously you have an option with air freight as well. Can you talk a little bit about those supply chain options for businesses?
Certainly. So in the world, the world as we know it has significantly changed as a result of COVID and a number of other factors. So before COVID, everything was just in time. Warehouses were going away. We were having trucks backing up to other trucks, and inventory supply was timed, very specifically to avoid having large supplies on hand, which is wonderful. That has changed significantly. Companies are discovering that they do need to keep inventory on hand because of supply chain shortages, and we cannot count on things being available at a moment's notice anymore. So those are all things that you factor into your conversations with your customer. You factor into your delivery timelines and cycle in terms of how you get your product to market. That is where having a good trusted logistics partner can be very handy, at least until you have the time to build that expertise in-house. There are lots of considerations in addition to the time it takes to get to market. So typically ocean freight is going to be much longer transit time than it will by air. Air, however, is much more expensive. And so it tends to be reserved for shipments that are either sensitive and don't do well in an ocean container environment, or are time sensitive in terms of getting that product to market. And sometimes you will find a buyer that is willing to pay and cover the air freight costs, even though it's much more expensive, because of their need to have an item more quickly. So these are all definitely considerations that go into your planning and your negotiations with your buyer. And I would say have significantly changed in the last 3 to 4 years. I'll let Paul articulate it on it more as an actual international businessman.
Thank you. Well, yeah, supply chain has been an issue. The first thing I would mention is that if you're going to get into exporting and you have a product, you need to think about how you're going to ship it. You really just can't put it in a box and send it overseas. We've gone to the point of investing in using our crating materials as marketing tools with our logo and our website, so that as it transits from our warehouse to our customer's warehouse, everyone, including my competitors, have an opportunity to see it. We really want people to know who we are and what we do, and we're proud of what we do. The second consideration that you have to make is, who is your freight partner? And I can't stress enough that it's important to understand what the strengths of your freight partner are. Some companies do well at air freight. Some do well at ocean freight. Some specialize in certain lanes, meaning, either Canada or Europe or Africa or the Middle East. So knowing your freight partner, knowing what their strengths are, only enhances your ability to deliver a product to a foreign buyer. The other consideration is time. And if a shipment is urgent, you would ship it by air. I was astounded last month that we shipped 2 15,000-pound wheels to Chile. Now, can you imagine that? That was the first time I've ever done it, and I thought, wow, that's pretty cool. And my freight forwarder thought it was pretty cool too, because it was a pretty expensive movement. So supply chain also impacts the availability of vessels if you're thinking about ocean shipment. Or the availability of aircraft. Whereas we're accustomed to having things overnight or in 2 days. It could take 3 or 4 days to get a shipment on a plane. It could take weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, before you can get your cargo or your container on a vessel. And then that vessel could be delayed. So all of it is about learning what the timetables are, understanding the sensitivity, and working with a partner and understanding the parameters of that logistics.
Thank you both. And you guys must be doing a great job of explaining things, because we don't have a whole lot of questions right now. But I guess
everyone's still asleep.
I guess, kind of, again, you guys are both resources for small businesses as they look to learn and grow their exporting business. So could you kind of just go back over some of the resources that are available for businesses as they look at that as an opportunity to grow their revenue?
From my side, from the commercial service, I'm available to meet in person or over the phone or email, whatever is comfortable, and go through step by step all the considerations you need to take into account as you begin to look at exporting, as well as direct you to resources, both those that we have on our trade.gov website, which I have posted in the chat. There are some great tutorials on there that will familiarize you with the export process, the various elements of information you need to be equipped with as you begin your export planning. And then I can also speak in more detail to the various products and services that Paul mentioned earlier, our business-to-business matchmaking, the market research that we have. We also do due diligence on potential partners that you may have identified. And we offer advocacy services if you are bidding on a foreign government procurement, whether that be at a national level, municipal, state. If it is a public procurement, we, the U.S. government, can go in and advocate for a procurement decision in your favor, as long as you complete an application process, and that is completely free of charge. So this is our effort as the U.S. government to support our U.S. companies in their bids for large-scale government procurements internationally. So we have a host of market research information, tutorials, business counseling, and services available through my office and offices like the Knoxville office across the United States. And I'm happy to connect you with my overseas offices once you've identified prospective markets where we can have those conversations directly with people on the ground who have the local contacts, understand the local business environment, can inform about the regulatory and policy situation that you need to be aware of, etc. Over to you, Paul.
Well, Jennifer, all I could do is say you're doing a great job. I would also stress that, the Department of Commerce as a whole has made it a priority to support small business in exporting their products. They realize the importance of exporting to our economy, to our communities, and to job growth. So I was at a conference last week, and many of Jennifer's colleagues were there, and they reiterated the same message many times. And they did it in a way, and I think it was Diane who said, all boats rise with a high tide. And it was a very good metaphor, particularly since we were in Rhode Island. But she emphasized that exporting and the Department of Commerce efforts to support it is a way to make sure that all boats rise with a high tide. And they want to do it where it's equitable and it reaches all communities, whether it's rural communities or urban communities. They want to support all kinds of businesses. They want to make sure that the efforts include a diversity initiative, and they're put a big emphasis on women-owned businesses and minority businesses. So it's really trying to encourage businesses of any shape or form with a product or a service to find a way to engage the foreign buyers.
Thank you so much, Jennifer and Paul. And again, there are a lot of emerging economies out there in the world. So I'd encourage all of our East Tennessee businesses to pursue some engagement with Jennifer and her team to help determine what markets are best for them. So thank you to our panelists, Jennifer and Paul. I'd also like to thank all of our economic development ecosystem sponsors who make chamber programming possible. Mesa Associates, Shod Companies, Fifth Third Bank, Chrisman Company, and McCarty Holzapple and McCarty. If you have any more questions about exporting support, please contact Jennifer Woods directly. Thank you again, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.